who will be actually presenting to us tonight. So we are in for a huge treat. We have Dr. Frank Kaufman and Wayne Miller and Sun Hyung Miller and Catherine Ono and also Luke Jean. So we're a team that's just like dedicated to bringing you something a little bit different each week, something to inspire you to think about, to make you think. And every week, as you know, we have a different presenter. So tonight we're really excited to have Joe Yong present. But before we go into that, I'm just going to run through, in case anyone's new this evening, our format. We have a 20-minute presentation. And during that time, we ask you not to write in the chat box, just so there aren't millions of messages whizzing by that make me go dizzy. And then, but if you have questions, please write them down. Please make a note on your phone. And then during the group meeting time or the Q&A time, we can put them in the chat box and we'll do our best to answer your questions. Also in your group meetings, after the presentation, you'll go into your small group meeting. And that's a chance for you just to think, like, how does this apply to my life? Like, is this just a theoretical idea or is this relevant? And to express your own thoughts on the topic. We'll give you a couple of questions and just make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. And also, for those of you who are shy, don't be afraid to speak up, because what you think and have to say really matters. So it's a time for everyone. And then after that, we'll have a Q&A and we'll have our team respond to those questions for you. So we have an exciting hour ahead of us. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my good friend, Joe Yong. Joe Yong is a pastor of South Florida Family Church. He's also a musician. He's a great jazz musician. He's also a dad. He has the cutest little girl on the planet. He has a wonderful wife, Kay Shu, whose birthday was last week. And he's just a great all-round human being. And it's my delight to, introduce him tonight, because he's one of those pastors that takes an idea and just really helps you to think about it. And most of all, think about how does it apply in my everyday life. So without further ado, Joe, I would like to introduce Pastor Joe Yong.
Oh, unmute myself. There you go.
It's a good idea, especially when you're speaking.
How are you guys? So thanks for having me here and being here, and we're together again. I feel like a cool momentum happening for us, and the more we go through this, the more I get ideas and the more I look forward to it. So today I wanted to kind of go forward with from Dr. Kaufman's talk last week, and going to cover a little material that's just after his in the Divine Principle, but I sort of veered off the rails a little bit and wanted to give this talk its own title called The Greatest Artist of All Time. And I relate to that because I think I spent much of my life wanting to be a creative person and pursuing music. So I'll let you know about a little book that really changed the course of my thinking on music. It was written by a guru jazz educator named Dave Liebman. And I met him a couple times, and I never really studied with him, but his book had an amazing impact on me and my philosophy about music. And he says that to be a great artist, to be the ultimate artist, you need these three pillars. One is you need knowledge. You need to know about the scales and about the music theory, and you need to know about the quality of the chords that you're playing and rhythms. You need to just know about music, the information of music. Two, the second pillar is you need the facility on your instrument. So it'd be wonderful to know about every scale that ever existed, but until you sit down and practice, well, you're really not going to play music very well. So you need the work ethic. You need the discipline to, and I don't know how many of you ever tried playing guitar, but you know that it takes a little bit of effort. You get through those blisters and you kind of have to push through. So that's the second pillar. The third pillar, which takes a little bit longer to develop, is artistry. And I learned that trying to be a young hotshot guitar player in my teenage years, my teacher pulled me aside, and he was a student of this philosophy about these three pillars. And he said, Joe, I'm not worried that you're going to pass the class. You're learning the scales. You're getting all the info. You've got it. And I can tell you're practicing. You know, and me back then, I was like kind of a teacher's pet. So I was like, yeah, Professor Zilber, I've been practicing 4 hours a day, and I'm getting this. And actually, I'd like to say that was kind of a lot for me at the time, because I was also mowing lawns on weekends and trying to earn money for my own my classes and my lessons and stuff. So I was really digging in, really going for it. And even after that, he said, yeah, Joe, but your music sounds like a practice room. That was hurtful, I have to say. I think he tried to do it gently, but man, it really hit me. I'll never forget it. Your music sounds like a practice room. He's like, you gotta live your life. What's your music about? You know, what's the story you're trying to tell with this music? It's not just about getting the notes and getting the skills. Ultimately, music is trying to express something, some emotion, some message out of your heart. And I thought that was pretty deep, and I've thought about that ever since. So, you know, I do encourage everyone to have some kind of creative outlet, because you get to develop these three things. So in our faith, in Divine Principle, in our teaching, we think that each person has these three faculties of their mind, which is their intellect, which is facilitates the knowledge, their emotion, which is like the artistry, and their will, which is like the discipline of the practice. And so I thought it was quite incredible that this guru, all-time best jazz educator, basically boiled down that intellect, emotion, and will was what you needed to be a great artist. We have all these components in us. And similarly, God is the greatest artist of all time. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, we're not going to outdo the Rocky Mountains, and no matter how hard we try, you know. Actually, I think it was Aunt Heather, I was having a discussion with you this week, and, you know, we were talking about, like, how even the Beatles, who I think is the greatest band ever, some people don't like the Beatles. I don't get it. I don't know why. I love the Beatles. I think they're the greatest. But some people don't like the Beatles. But man, if you line up 1,000 people to look at a beautiful sunset, every single one of those people is going to say, that is a beautiful sunset. It's undeniable. His artistry is beyond anything we will ever be able to do. So God actually has these three pillars, these three faculties as well. He has an intellectual mind, clearly, because, I mean, look at the laws of physics and mathematics and all this incredible stuff we discover all the time. God clearly has emotion, right? It's in the Bible. God is love. All these things he created for us evokes and just wells up emotion in us. And God has a will, which I think maybe that's the one I overlook more, but thinking about it, God has a will that's very, very strong. He has a determination and persistence through all of human history to reclaim us as his children, to work to turn mankind away from their sadly wicked ways. He's never letting go of that. That's incredible will that God has. And so knowing that we have those things and that God has the same, I'd like to encourage us to all think that actually we can all relate to God on any one of those three. It's sort of a misconception that you can only feel God if you are this certain kind of emotional person that feels incredible presence on Sunday morning. Actually, God can be honored and worshiped and connected to on an intellectual and a will level and an emotion level as well. You can honor God and pursue God with your intellectual pursuit. You can honor God and pursue God with your will, right? With your dependability, with your just keep showing up. I mean, I know I feel that as a pastor. When somebody just keeps showing up to help out, you feel like, wow, God is sending someone to boost me up. You can be a channel for God in all three of these ways. They're all equal, important. And ultimately, the highest ideal of what you can seek with your intellect, with your mind, is truth. I think a lot of smart, super smart people in history have used their intellect to trick others. They trick others, they lie, they spin webs of lies, they corrupt. But actually, God gave us this incredible intellect to pursue truth. Ultimately, your emotion, the highest ideal of what your emotion can seek is beauty. Beauty. And ultimately, your will, the highest ideal of what your will can seek is goodness and righteousness in the world. So when we use our faculties for those things, for truth and beauty and goodness and righteousness, we are aligning with God how he intended us to use these incredible faculties, these incredible aspects of us. When we use these for truth, beauty, and righteousness, we're closer to God. We're closer to how God intended us to be. You know, the part I relate to the most is God as the artist. You know, I wish I was smarter than I am. I've tried reading thick philosophy books from ancient philosophers, and I just get lost and can't really handle it. The part I really relate to is God as the artist. And I was thinking about his works all week, and I was thinking, wow, this sunset, all this stuff, it's so beautiful, but wait a second, to God, it probably just looks like a swirling mess of particles, right? I mean, it's just energy, right? It's just light swirling around. So I kind of imagine God in like a big sandbox, just swirling light particles around. Well, okay, that probably gets boring after a while. The sunset really doesn't mean anything. As weird as it sounds, it doesn't really mean anything to God. I mean, it's just sand being swirled around, basically. The sunset doesn't mean anything until you and I are there to watch the sunset, to appreciate it, to soak it in. And I don't know, to bring that home, what makes even more sense for me is like in the context of, say, telling a joke. If you told a joke all by yourself in your house, alone, I don't think many of us do that, right? I mean, well, actually, if you do that, I don't judge you, okay? Because I actually just 20 minutes ago, I told Keishu, what do you think about this outline? She's like, oh, I tell jokes to myself all the time when you're not here and you're at work. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm practicing them, or like I'm saying I should have said that. So anyway, this example is almost like self-defeating, but most of us, I think, don't tell jokes all by ourselves in our house, right? A joke has no value at all until you tell the joke to another person and they get a big belly laugh out of that. Then the humor enters the room, and then it has meaning. All by yourself, with no one to laugh at your joke, a joke has no value. There's no meaning to that. And so in our faith, in the divine principle, we teach that the value of everything God made takes on its value and takes on its meaning when it's received and it lands on the human heart. When it lands in our soul, when it evokes an emotion, when it evokes our imagination, our dreams, our thoughts, our desires. This is something we teach that's very important in our faith because it gives incredible meaning to your life. I was remembering about sunsets because I was thinking about God creating sunsets and how amazing they are. So I'll tell you about a couple that I'll never forget. One was the third day, just the third day that I had known my wife. Now her name is Keishu. The third day that I knew Keishu, we were having dinner in Costa Rica, which was pretty, I mean, that sounds kind of magical, right? I think it was. Nervous and all that. And we said, let's go get some dinner. And neither of us spoke Spanish, so we hail a cab and we just tell them in a broken Spanish, we just said, take us to a nice restaurant. I don't care just something nice. So he takes us to this place and has this open air tiki hut kind of feeling. No windows, no. And I remember after the dinner, there was a pause. And something about the way the sun had just like lowered past the branch of a tree, and it just started beaming in to our table through the open air. And it was this deep, like horizontal orange glow over the both of us. And she was wearing my sweater because she was cold. And it looked like better than any Hollywood filter post-production movie. It looked like a dream. And I was thinking, oh my God, God is sending in this amazing sun. He's really helping me out a lot right now. Like, I was nervous. I don't know what to say, but man, this light came in. And it was like he was breathing romance into our relationship right from the start. And, picking up on what we were talking about last week, how everything is in these relationships. We're meant to harmonize. We call that 4-position foundation, right? Well, God is always, he's the force that breathes life, energy, romance, joy. He breathes this force into our relationships and into our dynamics in our life. He is that air. He is that momentum starter, which is very incredible. I know he was doing that on that third day with me and my wife. So really, without the human connection, I was thinking about another sunset. This is the last sunset I'll tell you about. And that is, we were in Key West, right? We were lining up to see this amazing world famous sunset in the Keys. And geez, my life sounds really exotic, doesn't it? This is rare occasions. These are spaced out years apart, okay? I'm not a globetrotter like that. But anyway, we were in the Keys about to watch this sunset. And we were lining up, and all of a sudden it's about to happen. And I look around and there's like 300 tourists next to me. And I'm like having this magical moment, and like everybody's just in awe all together, complete strangers. And the weirdest thought happened to me. I was like, it's funny, but the animals don't do this. Like snails don't slime along the road and then just stop and line up together and watch the sunset. I mean, they have little eyes, right? But they don't do that. Seaweed doesn't love the sunset, and then it's something special about what it does to the human heart. And that's how I know God meant it and built it and made all that for us. So literally, really, this stuff doesn't have much value at all until it lands into your life, into your soul, into your heart. And if you think about it, that means God doesn't really even experience the fullness of the beauty of all of this stuff without you appreciating it, without you getting inspired by it. God is constantly breathing this backdrop to your life, the scenery, the moments, the people. And it all means something when you take it in. And so I guess what I'd like to say, the takeaway is that, you know, God is not some one-dimensional character that just judges and that's it. He's got one gig. God is multifaceted. He has incredible intellect, incredible feeling and artistry, and an incredible persistence to reconnect with us. And that, you know, your life matters so much. It's you that completes it. So, you know, don't get tricked. You know, I think a lot of us feel like we don't matter, or we don't make a difference unless we're billionaires, right? Do not get tricked by that. Your life matters. And as I was kind of prepping this message, some thought flew into my mind and said, matter is not the right word. Like, it's so much more than mattering. Like, I wouldn't really go to my daughter and say, you matter to me. You don't matter to me. You're everything to me. You're the whole universe to me. You know, the word matter is pretty relevant right now. It's not a good enough word. My daughter is the whole universe to me. You know, she doesn't understand, but when she can understand, I'll tell her, you know, me and mommy are doing countless sleepless nights so that you could sleep a little more. You know, I'll work myself to death so that you don't go hungry. And if it came down to it, I would die if it meant I could save you. And if you think about how God sent his son, Jesus, and did just that. How God loves us that much. That's the heart of God. Can't you see it? That's exactly the heart of God. He's that kind of parent. So do not ever let go of this truth that we teach, which is you are incredibly important. You're priceless. And don't ever forget that God is thinking about you every moment of every day, and that you can reconnect to God at any time. And he's longing to do that with you. So thank you very much, everyone. That's a presentation on Divine Principle today.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was really heartfelt and beautiful and great and funny. And I like the idea of snails lining up to see a sunset. I feel like, what would that be like?
That popped into my mind because there's so many snails in around my house right now for some weird reason.
Maybe they all came to watch the sunset. Who knows?
Proving me wrong yet again.
I think the points that you made are very important and impactful. And I'd like to do just a 90-second silence. You can switch off your camera. You can, keep your voice muted, and just think about this presentation. To think about what kind of stood out for you, but also to think about how do you uniquely connect to God? Do you connect through your intellect? Someone who connects through their intellect might find a lot of value, in God's word and scripture. Like, you're the kind of person who sees, a Bible verse or a piece of scripture and just goes like, yes, that's it. Or maybe you relate through your emotion or through your will in terms of wanting to do, to create goodness in the world. There are all kinds of ways to create to God. And I thought we could just take 90 seconds of silence to just meditate on, how do I personally relate to God? What's the way I connect? And then we can go into our groups and discuss that. And Taka's going to put the questions up in the group meetings so that you can have some time to discuss. And then we'll come back for our all group Q&A. So Tucker, let's take us away for 90 minutes of silence. If you want to turn your camera off so you can just sit and meditate, please do. And we'll see you in 90 seconds.
Okay, welcome back, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Tucker. Welcome back. And we're going to go into our groups right now. And the two questions which you will see in your groups are, what is one thing that struck you when you heard this presentation? And the second thing is, how do you experience God in your life? Because everyone experiences God differently. So how do you experience God? And then thinking about God and ourselves as beings of intellect, emotion, and will, how do those qualities express themselves in your life and help you connect to God? So think about those three qualities: intellect, emotion, and will. How do they express themselves in your life, and how do you connect to God through them? So let's just go into our groups, and we'll see you in 20 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had some good discussion. We have the discussion questions in the group chat, but this is a great time for you to put a question in the group chat. And if you have a question you would like to ask of Joe, like how many snails did he observe watching a sunset the other day, or whatever the question might be. Also members of our team can also respond to questions. We have quite a varied team with lots of different experiences and expertise. So, or, and it doesn't have to be a question. You might have a reflection that you want to share. So
our question is, how did you make 20 minutes pass by in just 3 minutes?
Well, I'm so glad you say that, because for me, that 20 minutes felt like 3 hours. That was a different perspective over here. So
You must have sucked out our time.
But Heather, I don't know if you realize it, but Satwe informed us that you actually said we're going to have a silence for 90 minutes. Not 90 seconds. So she laughed the entire way through the 90 seconds.
I'm so sorry. Well, that was a great joke. I was just, exemplifying a joke that needs to be laughed at. Apologies for that, everybody. But we've got a couple of questions here. So, Sam asked to Joe, can you clarify or elaborate on how the highest form of recognizing God in emotion is beauty? So I guess it's a question about the connection between emotion and beauty.
Yeah, there's such an amazing link between emotion and beauty. When I have an emotion, I want to create beauty. Like I want to write my next song because I have this yearning and this emotion inside me. And then the song just pops out. And then people come up to you, well, ideally, people say, wow, beautiful song. That was beautiful. And then the other way around, with beauty, when you see something beautiful, it creates out of nothing an emotion inside of you. So I just see those two as linked. Can I prove to you that no, beauty is the highest one of all the other words? No, beauty is the word your emotion seeks. I just know from personal experience that beauty and emotion are very closely linked, and they seem to have a purpose for each other.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And there was another one that is, wow, they're all like scrolling up and down. Hold on a minute, I'm going to find it. It was, can you talk about the difference between love and emotion? Because I think sometimes those things get connected. Like you think, oh, emotion, love. How are emotion and love different from each other, or the same, I guess? And feel free to pass it on to other people too.
That's a really good question. Actually, I think, would it be cool if Dr. Kaufman talked about that a little
absolutely.
bit? Because I love to hear his response. I have an idea too, but I'd love to hear his response.
Why don't you share your idea and then we'll hear from Dr. Kaufman.
Okay. Well, love is a little bit more broad and a little deeper, like, love for your country. It could drive you to be an excellent military strategist, and you wouldn't think of that person as very emotional necessarily. So emotion just seems a little bit more of a chiseled or refined or subcategory, whereas love kind of encompasses the big why. So I would say love is like a bigger why, like why do I want to be a musician? Why do I want to play? I didn't really want to be a musician out of an emotion. I just had an inspiration. I had an idea. Whereas an emotion is like a specific thing, and it roller coasters every single day, and there's no bad emotion. It's valid to feel any variation of emotion. It's what you do with that emotion that really counts. But so your emotions are valid. And so if I'm angry, I might take it out on my guitar and practice extra hard, or if I'm lonely, I'll put that in a song. So I just see it as emotions are kind of more transient, more passing through, whereas love is sort of a deeper, connected to God's source that is kind of pushing me through life and giving me my reason for living and reason for being. So anyway, Dr. Kaufman, maybe you can put that into less words.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Kaufman.
No, that was great. That was great, Joe. I think the emotional side of love is the sweetest part of it. Feeling is really strong. What we feel is really strong, and that's from the emotional world. And when we feel pain or suffering, or it's a very strong driving force. And so love passes through all of the faculties. It passes through will. It passes. So, for example, there's a terrible storm. I'm extremely tired. My wife is lonely or in trouble, and I just power on. That means love is passing through will. I'm just in a kind of a dogged mechanical robot, like getting through this storm, getting myself home. That's love. Or there's a problem at home. There's a problem with my child, and I have to think through lots of ways to make this situation just perfect, to fix it. That's love passing through the intellect. But when love passes through the emotions, this is the thing that's most dramatic, most like the movies, most thrilling and exciting, because feelings are great. There's nothing like them, but love, which is the kind of unending and infinite desire for the joy of your partner, it has to pass through all the faculties that God gave us. So they all feel different, but they're all beautiful when they are in the service of love.
Thank you. That was very insightful, both those responses. Thank you. I have another question here, and that is, how do we actualize or realize our unique value? So Joe, you talked a lot about people's value, that people matter, that their lives matter, that it's even more than that. So how does someone actualize or realize their unique value? Do you have any insights about that? Or if another member of our team wants to pop on?
I'm a big believer in following your intuition, going where you feel God, follow your conscience. I mean, I think God works through those things, and it's us that doubts it, you know? So, you know, it's like if God tells me if my deep burning intuition is, man, I got to go to Germany and study with some guru classical guitarist for 10 years. Maybe that's God whispering that to me, but then the brain goes, oh no, but there's no church center near there, so I'm going to be a bad person. No, dude, that's God saying, go do this. I need you, go, you know, so your passions, your intuition, your conscience, your gut instincts, I think that's how God steers you. And it just takes a little bit of guts to go with your gut. And I just trust that you will fulfill your value uniquely if you do that, because your conscience is unique to you. Maybe I can, do you want to hear, Uncle Wayne, do you have something that you'd like to say?
I want to just say I totally agree with you that intuition is the greatest spiritual gift we have, according to True Father. And we need to follow our intuition, even when it seems crazy sometimes. Because religious people sometimes fall into the trap of taking the safe way. Let's do the thing that's safe. Let's go with the crowd. Everybody does this. Let's go with the crowd and be safe. But sometimes you don't need to be safe. You need to do the thing that's totally out there. And I'm what you might call it a unification existentialist. I believe we need to make decisions. We need to take responsibility for those decisions. If they're bad decisions, okay, man up, accept it, and make a new decision. But don't just rely on the crowd to tell you how to live. And when you look into your intuition, wow, yeah, You need to really think about it. If your intuition seems to be good and you follow it and it seems to be going in a good direction, then yeah, own that, baby. Own that.
Can I?
Yes.
I
Go
don't
ahead,
like to
Frank.
speak a lot, but
Yeah.
this one I feel strongly about.
Go for it.
Yeah. There's a couple of couples in their little Hollywood Squares box in our group here. And the easiest way to know how to be your unique relationship with God is through the one who loves you, because the one who loves you wants no one else but you. And so that's the perfect metaphor, because God needs you in the exact same way that your husband or wife wants no one else but you. So there's nothing theoretical about it. You know what I'm saying? God needs exactly you, really loves you, and not no one else, but kind of like that.
Mhm.
Exactly you. So, so thanks.
That was wonderful. Thank you. I just want to, someone made a comment, Jung-hee, and she said, beauty is reality seen through the eyes of love. So thank you for that comment and that definition of beauty. Beauty is reality seen through the eyes of love. And I think that's kind of what you were saying, Frank. You know, in your partner, in your other, you want just that person because you see so much beauty in them because you're looking at them through the eyes of love.
And that's how God looks at us. Right, right.
Yeah, right, you know. Yes, everyone is lovable. Sometimes I pray about that point. Were there any other questions? We just have a couple more minutes, and if somebody wanted to put a question in the box, I think I've covered them all, but we have two more minutes if anybody has a question or thought.
I just have a comment, Heather.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just to add on to what we were talking about, that I think it's really cool that God gave us a growing edge, that God gave this possibility, this potential to always keep growing. So what my husband always talks about, like recreating myself. And it's interesting because it has to do with what we were talking about a couple minutes ago, value, and how do you know your value or what you're supposed to do? You know, that actually can change. And even I was thinking earlier in the conversation, we were talking about beauty. And beauty is when something fulfills its purpose. That's a beautiful thing, but we don't always recognize it. So I always am feeling like my growing edge to keep growing in all, even the philosophical part, the intellectual part, and the will part, but especially the emotional part, to put those together. But I think it's kind of neat that God made us like that. Like we can keep discovering our purpose and keep following our intuition and keep going and create some other beauty in ourselves that we didn't start out to, that we might not have even thought about before. I just thought that's a really wonderful gift that we have through our understanding, through our sharing. We can really understand that.
Thank you, Annie. And that's a great segue, because next week, guess what we're discussing? It's the growing period. So actually next week, we're talking about how do you grow spiritually. So I invite you all back and to listen to that presentation. But I'd like to hand off to Joe to give us a little farewell and a parting thought. And I just want to thank everyone so much for coming on tonight, for taking time out of your evening to just be here with us and to create this beautiful community that is, we're all working hard to express love and to grow. So Joe, take it away.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, this was really fun. Awesome. I love learning, and I love learning with all you guys. So cool. So yeah, I mean, you know, if you're looking for meaning in your life or purpose and direction in your life, it's right there. And you are, like Frank said, you are the no one else will do. You're right there for God. And, you know, just go ahead and go where you feel God, and go with your intuition, and pursue your intellect, pursue your discipline, pursue the emotional world as well, and keep love at the center, true love at the center. You got to trust God, you know. God will tug on your heart when he needs to. So I think you can take this and kind of really go on your journey through life, and then, you know, we're connected, right? So we can go through the journey together. Thank you so much, guys. Farewell.
All right. Thank you
you.
so much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday night, where we'll talk about spiritual growth. So bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.